Welcome on back, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules podcast. This is episode 58, and this is our round 3 preview of the AFLW season 2024, as well as a review of round 2 matches from the AFLW. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the AFLW season so far. Who's going to win it all? Get your early predictions in now. There's been some upsets already. It's been a pretty chaotic season already, to be honest. Don't forget, as always, check out the socials as well. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at All Aussie Rules everywhere. And the podcast goes live twice a week, YouTube and Spotify, Mondays and Fridays. So go check them all out. We do men's season, we do the AFLW as well. And don't forget, this episode is actually going out a day early. So typically it will be Fridays. Next week it will be going back to Friday episodes. Just for this 1 week only, we're releasing on Thursday due to the Thursday night fixture in the AFLW this weekend. So without any further ado, let's jump into the round 2 review. So first we'll look at that, and then we'll check out my tips, and then we'll jump on to round 3 preview. Also, don't forget, plenty of other videos going live every day on YouTube at the moment. We're doing reviews of every team that gets knocked out of the men's season. So we're already up to, we've done Carlton, that released yesterday, if you're watching this when it releases. And we've got Bulldogs going live in a couple days, their season review. So go check them all out. Also, there is going to be preview episodes individual on each semi-final going live over the next 2 days, so go check them out from the men's competition. And episode 57 of the podcast was a preview of the semi-final matches, as well as a review of the qualifying and elimination finals action from last weekend. So plenty of content everywhere. But without any further ado, let's jump into it. The round 2 football started on Friday night at the MCG. I'm not sure how many AFLW games have been played at the MCG before, but as a little double header with the men's final, the night started off poorly for the Bulldogs, and it only got worse. They lost the AFLW match, and then they got not smacked. They got beaten by 20-something points in the men's competition. So a rough night for the Bulldogs football club, but I don't think they went in with too high hopes in this one against Port Adelaide. In all honesty, the Bulldogs women's team is probably very likely to get the wooden spoon, I would imagine, from what we've seen from the first 2 weeks and kind of what we expected from them this year. I'd be surprised to see them do it any better than that. Yeah, just a rough night. They kicked 0 goals 6 for the day to Port Adelaide 7-4, so went goalless. Didn't have a huge amount of opportunities throughout the game. I don't think Port Adelaide are the best team in the competition, but they certainly had Bulldogs measure in this one. So look at the stats. Disposals actually went the way of the Bulldogs, plus 13. Inside 50s were pretty level, 31 to Port Adelaide, 30 to Bulldogs, so only one difference. Disposal efficiency from the Bulldogs was actually better this week than last week. Their efficiency inside forward 50 is the lowest I've seen recorded at 16%. So only 16% of the time were they getting a shot at goal when they went forward. So not great numbers there. Like Port Adelaide's was quite bad as well at 32%, but double what the Bulldogs was. Clearances, dead level, 30 apiece. Contested football, plus 8 for Port Adelaide, whereas Bulldogs got the measure in both uncontested football and the turnover game. So a couple positives for the Bulldogs, but kicking 0-6 is not outstanding. Minus 21 in tackles for Bulldogs, so Port Adelaide were really good in that regard. Overall, pretty comfortable win for Port Adelaide, a really good result for them, especially after round 1 performance where they played pretty well against one of the top teams in Adelaide. So Port Adelaide look like they're going to have a solid season. They might be pushing towards the top 8 based on what we've seen the first 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised to have started the season well. I look at some of the best players for the Bulldogs. I mean, they got beaten quite convincingly, but Ellie Blackburn was leading fantasy scorer on the ground. She had 110 fantasy points, 26 disposals, 7 tackles, really good. But it was one-way traffic, really. Port Adelaide had Maria Maloney, who had 12 touches, 11 tackles, 6 clearances. Really good performance there. Goal kickers, Julie Teakle kicked 4 goals from 7 touches. An outstanding performance from her. I think that puts her at the top of the goal kicking list this year. Kirsty Lamb had 2 goals, and the only other goal kicker on the ground was Gemma Houghton. And she kicked 1. So only 3 goal kickers in the match. But yeah, it was just one-way traffic, in all honesty. I don't know if there's anything else that's too exciting on the stat sheet worth noting. But Port Adelaide, they're going well. Bulldogs, not so much. Next game was a Saturday, I was going to say afternoon, but Saturday morning kickoff, 11:05 a.m. start in Melbourne. 2 teams that kind of were expected to have pretty good years this year, Melbourne and Brisbane. Brisbane, the reigning premiers. Melbourne have been a consistent team since AFLW started. This was at Casey Fields, and Brisbane played really well. They had the 2-goal lead at quarter time, 2 goals straight to 0-2. Second quarter was not much action in terms of scoring, only the 1 point to Melbourne. Melbourne had an okay third quarter, but in the end only managed 2 goals, 3-15 to Brisbane's 5-3-33. A look at some of the stats here. Brisbane dominated possession, 248 to 203 is a pretty big domination. Inside 50s +3 for the Lions. Disposal efficiency was really good from Brisbane as well. Clearances +14 is a massive lead in clearances. They won contested footy, they won uncontested footy. Melbourne did win the turnover game, but in the end they just weren't getting enough of the football. A really good performance from Brisbane across the board to bounce back after a really average round 1 performance against North Melbourne. They certainly corrected that here in an away game down in Melbourne. Meanwhile, for Melbourne, it's a tough start to their season. In all honesty, it hasn't been the best from them. They just got over the line week 1 against Geelong, so that was a good win, I guess. But they got convincingly beaten here, so it's been an interesting start to the year. I look at some of the players from this game. Ali Anderson, absolute dominant display. One of the more impressive performances we'll see this season, I reckon. She had 43 touches, 7 tackles, 7 clearances, 599 metres gained. She was outstanding. AFLW record 43 disposals, mind you, so well done to her. Goal kickers, Dakota Davidson really took over the game. Kicked 3 goals. I think she had 3 of their first 4. They only ended up kicking 5. So well done to her. She is a really good strong mark and finishes her shots well. Everyone else was single goal kickers. Sophie Conway for Brisbane was good as well. Isabel Davis, Dawes, I know what I'm saying. She had 21 touches, was good for Melbourne. Best players, probably Kate Hoare, 10 touches, a goal, 10 tackles in the forward line. Mackin had 19 touches and Goldrick had 20. They're probably the standout players across the board, really. And yeah, that's Melbourne and Brisbane went the way of the Lions, got their season away. They needed it, led by Ali Anderson, who you would imagine, will pick up 3 votes for that game because she was outstanding. Third game of the weekend was a 1:05 start on Saturday. It was West Coast hosting the Bombers. West Coast coming off a good win to start their season. The Bombers copped a loss in round 1 against Fremantle. And this one went the way of the Bombers. They got the win 6-5-41 to 3-7-25. So some poor kicking from West Coast in front of goal. But the Bombers bounced back after a tough first week where they copped a couple of injuries to crucial players as well. They came back and played pretty well here. They were 14-0 at quarter time, extended it to 27-13 at half time, 39-22 at 3/4 time, and finished up 41-25. So a goalless final quarter. And in the end, a pretty solid win for the Bombers. A look at some of the stats in this one. Bombers won possession, dominated inside 50s +8, so really controlled the ground for big chunks of this game. Clearances were pretty level across the board. Contested footy just went the way of the Bombers. Uncontested footy also went the way of the Bombers. Anything else? Tackles pretty level, but the Bombers did lay 21 tackles inside their forward 50, which is a really impressive number, and a sign that they really could lock it in their forward 50 quite well during this match. Some of the best players in this one, we'll look at goal kickers. Everyone was just a single goal kickers in this one. For the Bombers, it was Williamson, Vo, Gow, Kane, Alexander, Adams, and then for the Eagles, it was Weston, Lewis, and Franklin. Best players, probably the way of the Bombers on the most part. Madison Gay had 24 touches, 7 marks, solid in most ways, was massive in metres gained at 789 metres. For comparison's sake, the next best on the ground was 364 metres, so Madison Gay had an extra 425 metres gained than anybody else on the field, so outstanding performance in that regard. Propakis for Essendon, 27 touches, 2 behinds. Could have had a really good game if slotted those couple. Georgia Nanscowen had 25 touches. And for the Eagles, no one really dominated possessions. Leading possession getter for them was 16 touches by Ella Roberts. They couldn't get their hands on the ball enough, in all honesty, West Coast in this one. And the Bombers controlled it and got the win. I think the votes will probably go the way of Madison Gay. I think she was clearly the best player on the ground in this one. Jump into the next lot of games. First up, we have Collingwood Hawthorn. This was at Victoria Park on Saturday afternoon. Same time as the Bombers game kicked off. And it was a bit of a flogging in the way of Hawthorn smacking the Pies. So Hawthorn, as a club, had a really good weekend, winning their elimination final Friday night in the men's competition, and then getting a 47-point win over Collingwood on the Saturday. First quarter was pretty close, 14-7. Half time, it extended a little bit at 39-23, but still could have gone potentially either way, but it was a domination from that point on. It was 5-0 in the third quarter in the way of Hawthorn, and then the final quarter was 0-3 for Hawthorn to 0-1 for Collingwood, so all the damage was pretty much done in that third quarter. You take out that and it's probably only a 3-goal game, but it was a domination in that third quarter from Hawthorn. Look at some of the stats in this one. Oh, wrong button. The possessions went the way of Hawthorn, +18. Inside 50s, only +4 for Hawthorn, which is a bit lower than you'd probably expect from a 47-point win. But their efficiency inside forward 50 was outstanding at 71% of the time. They got it inside 50. They managed to have a shot at goal. So really good performance there. Clearances was level at 26 apiece. Contested footy was actually won by Collingwood, but uncontested footy went the way of Hawthorn. Turnover game was dead level. Tackles +9 for Hawthorn. Good effort there. And that's all the team stats. I jump into the players and goal kickers. 2 multiple goals scorers on the ground. Aine McDonough and Aileen Gilroy both kicked 2. And then a whole bunch of single goal kickers for both teams. Best players on the ground for Hawthorn, Tilly Lucas Rod had 27 touches. A really good performance there. Lucy Wales, 29 hitouts as a ruckman. Played a good game. Both the rucks for both teams were really good. Sabrina Frederick for Collingwood was outstanding again. So she's been probably in Collingwood's top 3 players both weeks. So look at her for her to make an early run in best and fairest calculations. Sarah Rowe was good for Collingwood. Brittany Benici was also outstanding. She's had 2 really good games. She had 27 touches, 10 tackles. But in the end, didn't get enough support, I don't think, certainly going forward. I don't know if there's too many other stats worth noting. Jasmine Fleming was leading metres gained player, 544 metres from 19 touches. Was a good effort, but overall, Hawthorn controlled this one in most facets. Looked the better team and got the comfortable win. The next game of the round wasn't till the Sunday because obviously there was 2 men's finals on Saturday evening and Saturday night. So the women's game waited till Sunday to continue, and we went to Richmond home game against GWS. The Tigers won this one 5-8-38 to GWS 4-3-27. So an 11-point game, pretty close match. Richmond kind of looked the winners certainly through the first half and up until like the 11-minute mark of the third quarter. It was 5-1. But after that point, GWS kicked the last 3 goals to get it back to look like they were a chance, but in the end, Richmond held them off by 11 points. Look at some of the stats in this one. GWS dominated possessions, plus 39. That's disposals, not possessions, I should point out. Much the same, but you get the point. Inside 50s, though, were dominated by Richmond, plus 8. Clearances went the way of GWS, plus 5. Contested footy was good from Richmond, plus 12, but uncontested football was plus 42 for the Giants. Turnover game was well and truly in the favour of the Tigers in this one, so they controlled that area of the game, which led them to controlling field position. If not, they didn't do well in possessions, obviously, but they did certainly control the field position and the turnover game. Tackles plus 17 for GWS was a really good performance there. Goal kickers, only one multiple goal scorer was Sarah Hosking, kicking 2 in her first game of the year. And then a whole bunch of single goal kickers. Leading fantasy player on the ground was Alice Parker with a massive 124. She had 27 disposals, 10 tackles. Really good performance there. Anyone else worth noting? Alicia Dowd, second game, pretty much as good as the first one without the goals. Zali Goldsworthy, also for the Giants, was good. For the Tigers, I mean, Monique Conti was probably thereabouts the best player for Richmond. Not up to maybe her normal standards, 18 disposals, 2 behinds, so she had her chances, just couldn't quite convert them. But maybe slightly down on her usual performance, because the week before was outstanding from her. She'll be looking to bounce that back this week in round 3. Next up, we have the Suns v the Blues. This was up in Mackay, so northern Queensland, and it was a ripper. Gold Coast 5-8-38, Carlton 5-9-39, 1-point winners to the Blues. It was pretty close most of the way. Carlton led in the first quarter. Gold Coast got the lead in the second. Third quarter, it was within a couple points the whole way through. Gold Coast kicked out to take the lead through a Jacqueline Dupai goal early in the fourth. And then stayed in front most of the way until the 18-minute mark of the last quarter. Madeline Gurin kicked the winner to go in front. Gold Coast did have her behind in the last minute or so, but couldn't keep the goal, so lost by a point in what was one of the closer games you'll see. Some stats in this one. As you'd expect, it was a close game, and most of the stats are pretty close across the board. Disposals plus 17 for Carlton. 263 disposals is quite a high number in the women's game, which is obviously a lot shorter quarters than what the men play. Inside 50s were very tight, 34 to 33 in favour of the Blues. Clearances plus 5 for Carlton, so good result there for them. They won contested football. They just won uncontested football. Gold Coast did win the turnover game, which kept them in it. And also, seeing that the uncontested football was so level, Gold Coast had an extra 20 marks than what Carlton did. So that's a fair indication that they controlled the ball pretty well, Gold Coast, on the most part. But weren't able to quite convert that into winning. A reasonably low tackle count in this one compared to most games that we've had this season. 63 for the Suns and only 49 for the Blues, which is really low in the AFLW competition. But yeah, Carlton sneak home with a good win for them, and Gold Coast probably a little disappointed with that result. A look at some of the best players from the weekend, from this game. All single goal kickers. We won't go through them all. I think best player on the ground goes to Charlie Rowbottom from Gold Coast. An absolute dominant performance from her. 163 fantasy points, 35 disposals, 10 marks, 10 tackles, 7 clearances. Listed as a quadruple double, as she had 22 kicks, 13 handballs, as well as the 10 marks, 10 tackles. Outstanding performance, no doubt about it. I think has to easily be best on ground with that one. Lucy Single for Gold Coast also was pretty good, 23 touches. 2 behinds though, could have had a better day. Carlton was probably just a really good performance across the board. They didn't have anyone really outstanding. Abby Mackay had 24 touches, was pretty good in this one. But overall, it was just a really good team performance from Carlton. Whereas Gold Coast had a few standout players who played really well, but just maybe lacked the depth in their performances across the board from the team in this one to get them over the line. We've got 3 more games from the round, and we head now to North Melbourne v Geelong. After round 1, North Melbourne were looking like a very strong premiership favourite team. Geelong lost narrowly in week 1, so they were still considered a very strong team and chance to take it all this year. And I mean, nothing changed from this game. It was a tight one. Ends up being a draw, 5-6-36 to 5-6-36. North Melbourne looked like they were going to dominate this one. They were 18 points up at halftime. In a low-scoring affair, that's a pretty comfortable lead, but they only managed the 1 goal in the second half, which was 5 minutes into the last quarter, to give them the lead back after North Melbourne had just taken the lead from them. But Michaela Bowen for Geelong kicked a goal at the 16-minute mark of the final quarter to tie it up, and that is how it finished. First draw of the season. Both teams have some high hopes for this season. It wasn't the best result in the end, being that North Melbourne, coming off a really good win, probably wanted to win this one, being a home game as well. And Geelong, they didn't quite bounce back as with all the points that they wanted, but still a good performance. Disposals, 248 for the Kangaroos, 233 for Geelong. Inside 50s were dominated by Geelong, 36 to 25. They were really good with ball all the way up until they got it into the forward line, where the Cats Clearances just +2 for the Kangaroos. Contested footy dominated by North Melbourne, whereas uncontested footy was pretty level. Turnover game slightly the favour of the Kangaroos. Tackles 71 for the Kangaroos, which is much better than they did last week, but last week they didn't need to tackle that hard because they were, I was going to say 500 points. They weren't 500 points up, but they were close enough. They would go +13 in tackles in this one. Best players, fantasy-wise, Jasmine Garner for the Kangaroos 130, Ash Riddell 101, Emma Kearney 101, Mia King 95, and then for Geelong it was Amy McDonald 90, 87 for Friswell, and 85 for Morrison. Two players for North Melbourne had over 30 touches, Garner 33 and Riddell 30, so some big ball winners for the Roos. Goal kickers, only one multiple goal scorer, and that was Aisling Maloney for the Cats. Clearances, Amy McDonald 13 to lead all comers by best of anyone else was 7, so she almost doubled anyone else in clearances, which is a really good effort. Tackles 13 to Mia King was really good. Metres gained, Emma Kearney 628 metres from her 29 disposals. So in the end, I don't know, I think a draw is probably a fair result in this one. Kangaroos looked good early, but Geelong stuck around and nearly managed to steal the win after being 3 goals down in the first half. On to the next game, game number 8 of the weekend. It was St Kilda v Sydney. This was in Victoria as well. And Sydney coming off a good win the week before. Obviously, now we know that Chloe Malloy, probably, if not their best player, certainly very close to Sydney's best player, is out for the season. She missed this game, having done her ACL during the week at training. We didn't know at the start of this game that she was out for the season, but she missed this one and will be missing for the rest of the year, which certainly hurts Sydney's chances. I don't think I had them in the top 5 or 6, but I certainly had them potentially as a finals contender. Probably 6 to 10 bracket on the AFL ladder, I was thinking, was about where Sydney were. This might hurt their chances. They may struggle to make finals without Chloe Malloy out there. St Kilda won it though, 6-6-42 to 4 goals, 226. Some of the stats in this one that are worth noting: Sydney dominated possession, dominated inside 50s, +10, but they just could not convert their domination in field position and ball use into shots at goal. So that really hurt them in this. A lot of the stats are very similar across the board for both teams, outside of the fact that Sydney dominated possession and inside 50s but couldn't convert it. So I'm looking at some player stats. All single goal kickers, no multiple goal scorers in this one. No one cracked the 100 in the fantasy world. The best players, top 4 fantasy players, were all Sydney. Garner get 95, Hurley 94, Kennedy 84, and McAvoy 81. And then for St Kilda, the best 2 were Smith 80 and Lambert 79. Gardiner had 26 disposals to lead all comers in terms of that. Tackles, leader was Tanya Kennedy with 10. Clearances were shared around. Tanya Kennedy, once again, had 6 of them. Metres gained, no one stands out too excitingly. And goal assists, 2 to Lucy McAvoy. So 21 touches, 2 goal assists for her. May jump her up to best on ground. It's probably going to be tight, in all honesty, who comes out as best player in this one. Very even. No dominant standouts in this one. We'll jump into the last game where we do have some outstanding performances, no doubt about it. For the second time this weekend, we've had a goalless team. Fremantle kicking 0-6-6, losing to Adelaide 5-9-39. over in Perth. Not the result the Dockers were looking for after a really good round 1 win against the Bombers. The Crows, though, they go to 2-0, beating Port Adelaide round 1, Fremantle in round 2. They looked the much better team in this one, no doubt about it. Some of the stats: 271 disposals for Adelaide, led the competition this week in disposals. Plus 46 on the Dockers there. Plus 14 inside 50s. Really good disposal efficiency. Clearances were pretty level for both teams, but uncontested footy is where the Crows dominated this one. No doubt about that. 5 goals, 9 is not the most accurate return, but still pretty solid performance for the Crows. They get the win here. Some of the best players. As we said, there were some standout performances, and it's hard to go past Ebony Marinoff. One of, if not one, the best player in the competition at the moment. No doubt she's an outstanding talent. 31 disposals, kicked a goal, 19. Yes, you heard me right. 19 tackles, 4 clearances. Just an absolute bull. Just you can't stop her with or without the ball. Getting tackles and winning the ball. She does it for fun, no doubt about it. Also, other big names here. Anne Hatchett is the second gun midfielder in this Adelaide Crows outfit, and she had an outstanding game too. 29 touches, 8 clearances. Typically would be clearly best on ground, but Ebony Marinoff was outstanding. Madison Newman also had a really good game. 27 disposals. Chelsea Randell was good as well. 19 touches and a goal. For Freo, they just struggled to get the ball. Their leading possession winner was Ashley Brazil with 18 disposals. McCarthy had 17. But when you look at how much of the ball Adelaide were winning, it was just a one-way traffic all game. Goal kickers, one multiple goal scorer who was Anne Hatchard, who had 29 touches, 2 goals. I think it's safe to say that the 2 best players on the ground were Ebony Marinoff and Hatchard. I think you've got to go the way of Ebony Marinoff just because of the 19 tackles to go with 31 disposals and a goal. Like, she didn't do a lot wrong in this one. And yeah, just an outstanding performance from her in this one. We'll jump into that's everything from round 2 action. Outside of just checking how my tipping went, it was a slightly better week than week 1. We got Port Adelaide in game 1 to beat Bulldogs. We then got a couple wrong. Melbourne went down to Brisbane. West Coast went down to Essendon, but then we got Hawthorn, Richmond and Carlton all right. North Melbourne was obviously a draw. St Kilda we got correct, and then we went Fremantle in that last one, and that made us look very silly. So, hand up accountability on that one. That was a bad tip. We went 6-9, which takes us to 10 out of 18 for the season. We'll now jump into our preview of round 3. We'll run through these games a lot quicker than our reviews. We lead off on Thursday night football, 7:15 at Whitten Oval. It's the Bulldogs versus West Coast, and in all honesty, it's hard to see a world where the Bulldogs win this based on what we've seen the first 2 weeks. They've been very disappointing. West Coast have been much improved so far in their first 2 games. Having lost last week wasn't their best performance, but their round 1 performance, if they're even close to that sort of level, they'll win this one comfortably. Friday night, we've got just the one game, which is an early start, so it's over before the semi-final action from the AFL. We've got Brisbane, Collingwood. You'd think Brisbane should win this one reasonably comfortably. However, Collingwood did upset them last year, but based on what we saw last week, I think Brisbane take care of Collingwood pretty comfortably in this one. Next week, it is worth noting, we will probably be bringing in some more stats and stuff for the previews. I'm just letting the season develop a little bit so we have a little bit more base, because I think stats in one game are not a great source of information, whereas stats across probably 3 matches are probably much more reliable. Saturday we have 3 games. Obviously, we start off with Saturday afternoon in Sydney at Coffs Harbour. Sydney v Richmond. Could be a cracker, this one. I'll be tipping Richmond. I don't have full faith in the Sydney Swans at the moment. And I think Richmond are going to be, even though they got beaten in round 1 to the Eagles, I think they're going to be a team that's in the top 8 at the end of the season. I think probably around 5 or 6 on a ladder. So I would expect them to win this one. Even though the market has them pretty close at the moment. Next up, we have Carlton hosting Geelong. In all honesty, it's 14th versus 15th, but I think Geelong win this one. They haven't won a game yet this year, but they've got a combined loss, a loss and a draw. So they lost by 2 points in round 1, I think it was, and then they drew in round 2. So their percentage is basically still 100, even though they haven't won a game. I'd imagine they come out and win this one. And then Saturday afternoon, over in Adelaide, we've got Port Adelaide hosting Fremantle. This, in all honesty, could be an absolute cracker. The odds are saying Fremantle in front on this one, although they were pretty poor last week, in all honesty, and I think Port Adelaide are a much improved team on what we saw last year from them. So this is certainly an upset potential, I think. Watch out for Port Adelaide in this one. I don't think they're quite at a level yet this year where they'll play finals, but I can certainly see them finishing within a game or so of the top 8. So, yeah, potential upset on the cards over in Adelaide there. We move on to the Sunday games. There's 4 of them. Obviously, no men's action, so all women's games all day. There's 2 starting at 1:05, and then a 3:05 and a 5:05. First up, we've got Adelaide hosting Hawthorn, so the second game in Adelaide for the weekend. Adelaide going into this quite comfortable favourites, which isn't much of a surprise. They are probably premiership favourites, in all honesty, at the moment. They're going really, really well. Hawthorn also going well based on what they performed last weekend in round 2 against Collingwood. They were outstanding. But I think Adelaide should win this, being it's their home game. I think they're the best team at the moment in the competition. They certainly have the most depth in their midfield, I think. At the same time, we've got Melbourne hosting Kangaroos at Casey Fields. Melbourne will be looking to bounce back after losing at home last week against one of the top teams in Brisbane, and this week they have to verse another one of the top teams in North Melbourne at home. So North are going to go into this favourites, and in all honesty, should win it. I think North were a bit disappointing last week, and they'll be a little bit upset with themselves for not going on with it as well as they should have after a really good first half and a really good round 1 performance. So yeah, I reckon North Melbourne there are probably going to go in as favourites and should probably take care of it. At 3:05 at Windy Hill, we got the Bombers, St Kilda. Bombers average round 1, but really good round 2. St Kilda have had 2 really good weeks so far. Might be a contender for maybe even a top 4 spot in a really congested top of the ladder come end of the season. I think St Kilda are probably the better team here, but if Essendon perform like they did on the weekend, maybe they're a chance here. And then the final game of the round is GWS, who are sitting 5th on the ladder, hosting Gold Coast, who are 16th. This is at Manuka Oval in the nation's capital. Gold Coast currently favourites in this, but I wouldn't be surprised to see GWS win it, to be honest. From what we've seen this year so far, GWS were going pretty well. Gold Coast haven't had the best start to the season, so I'm a little surprised that they're currently favourites. But, I mean, maybe they've had a tougher start to the season. I don't know. Your call. I guess they were pretty solid, losing to Carlton last week by a point, but I don't think Carlton are a team that's going to be challenging the top 8, in all honesty. And in round one, Gold Coast got beaten by 54 points. So I think another upset opportunity there, in all honesty. We'll now have a look at my tips for this weekend. As we said, we're 10 of 18 for the season. First up, we're going West Coast to beat the Bulldogs. I don't think at the moment there's going to be too many times I tip Bulldogs this year. Brisbane should take care of Collingwood, I would say, quite comfortably. Richmond, I think they're better than Sydney, so I'm going with them. Geelong, once again, just a better team than Carlton, I think, so I'm going with them. Fremantle, Port Adelaide, I could go either way this one. As I said, Port Adelaide have shown pretty good improvement this year, so I would not be surprised to see them win, but I have tipped Fremantle. Adelaide, I think, should beat Hawthorn. I think it's going to be pretty close, in all honesty, but I think Hawthorn should get over the line, just being the better team. Once again, same with the next one, North Melbourne. I have them slightly better team than Melbourne. I think both teams are potential top 4 teams, but North Melbourne, I think, are the better one. St Kilda to beat Essendon, but Essendon were good last week, so I'm not writing them off. And then the final game, as I said, GWS, I'm surprised that they're not favourites at the moment going into this one, because Gold Coast aren't going fantastic, whereas, I mean, GWS only played Bulldogs on the weekend, but they did win it by 63 points, and now they're hosting Gold Coast this week at the same ground they played at last week. So I think it's a reasonable tip to go with GWS in this one. That's everything from AFLW Rounds 2 review and Round 3 preview. Thanks for tuning in. In all honesty, we're just trying to get the content out. We're doing the 2 podcasts a week at the moment through the men's finals. 1 episode a week is obviously on the men's game, and 1 is on the women's game. We will be rotating them. At the moment, we're doing the first one of the week is the men's, second one is the women's. That will rotate just because coming up we're going to be having extra women's games each week, including games starting on Tuesdays as of next week. So the next podcast episode 59, coming out on Monday, will be the review of the AFLW Round 3 and preview of Round 4, just because we have games starting Tuesday. And then the episode coming out on Friday will be the review of AFL men's semi-finals and previews of the preliminary finals as we head towards the pointy end of the AFL season. So check out all the content. There's a ton coming out. As I've said at the start of the video, the amount of YouTube videos going out at the moment, there's pretty much one every day. I think one every day across 30 days, across 21 days, and like 31 out of 33 days I'm having videos go live. So check it all out. Ton of content, reviews of every team. There's going to be 2 extra previews coming up over the next 2 days of the 2 semi-finals. Check out all the content. I appreciate everyone. Jump in the comments. Let me know what you like about my videos or who you think's going to win the AFLW. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Catch us on the next one. Thank you.